4 days to Ghana's presidential and parliamentary elections. Good evening and welcome to Joy News Prime. Coming up this hour, the battle for Ashanti region reaches fever pitch with both Dr. Bawumia and John Mahama boxing themselves into the region in a desperate fight for hearts and minds. If you are a voter in the region, you're being treated to a barrage of promises, from making you millionaires to the building of a new flashy national theater.
I'm going to make you millionaires. Millionaires.
In our 2020 manifesto, we promised to build Ghana's second national theater in Kumasi.
Two more private members' bills introduced by NDC MPs to repeal COVID-19 levy and emissions levy, with the parliamentary standoff unresolved in the House on an indefinite suspension. We have details, but with the Constitution providing that private members' bills can only reduce and cannot remove taxes, can these bills withstand the constitutional test? We get the opinion of a lawyer. And Bekwai Circuit Court grants bail to 6 persons who assaulted Joy News journalist Erastus Asaridonko and his crew, as it charges them with assault, stealing, and conspiracy to commit crime. We'll bring you details of court proceedings today, as the police are on manhunt for the rest of the perpetrators. Also, President Akufo-Addo calls for a consolidated effort to stop destruction of the environment.
As a father and a grandfather, I question what we will leave behind. What world will we leave behind? Our children's future hinges on our decisions.
Well, the battle for Ashanti region reaches fever pitch, with both Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia and John Mahama boxing themselves into the region in a desperate fight for hearts and minds. Now, both flag bearers are treating voters in the region to a barrage of promises. The MPP's Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia is promising to make miners in the country and in the Ashanti region millionaires if he is elected president. He's also promising cocoa farmers that from next year, government will fund the university education of their children. Let's bring in my colleague, Nana Boachi Yadom, who is embedded with the team, and he joins us via Zoom now. Nana, how has the reception been from the people who he's been engaging?
Well, Kojo, in the Ashanti region, it has been a very good one for the vice president and the presidential candidate for the New Patriotic Party, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, since he started his 15-day tour of the region. So far, this is day 8 of his tour, and he has covered over 20 constituencies. We know that the vice president is going around 47 constituencies in the Ashanti region, and wherever the vice president goes, he is giving out promises on how he's going to transform Ghana's economy, i.e. through digitalization, through economic stability, and whatsoever. Yesterday, in the Obuasi constituency, the vice president promised that he is going to make sure that miners in the constituency are rich. They become millionaires if he is elected president. He says that his government is going to put in measures to ensure that the mining activity, or mining in general, is a lucrative business, whereas people who engage in that activity responsibly would become rich. And so these are some of the things that the vice president has touched on. And he has said that he is defending his record and the record of the Akufo-Addo government, saying that whatever the case may be, compared to what the NDC did, they have done better.
Okay.
Facilities, any gold catcher machines, bremo. The so miners, muhias, mudebeto ifidie. Enti yebe shishe Minerals Development Bank boa miners said mubenya loans etimiato equipment for mining. So Minerals Development.
We will introduce the common user facility and gold catcher machines to support miners. We will also establish Minerals Development Bank, just like the Agric Development Bank, to support miners. I am going to make you millionaires while you mine responsibly.
I'm going to make you millionaires. Millionaires. I'm going to make you millionaires. I'm going to make you millionaires. You will mine responsibly, not in the water bodies.
Nana, he's been talking about his optimism in securing victory come December 7.
Exactly, Kojo. The vice president says that he believes that whatever the case may be, the New Patriotic Party is going to win the December 7th presidential and parliamentary election. In fact, wherever he goes, he says that for him, he would want the election to be held on that same day because of the crowd that he gets to see. So he believes that be what it may, the MPP will win the election because the party has performed as compared to what the NDC did during their tenure in office.
In every sector of the economy, we have created more jobs. We have built more roads. We have built more railways. We have built more interchanges. We have built more hospitals. We have built more schools. We have built more sports facilities. We have built more libraries. We have built more airports. We have built more sanitation facilities. We have built more courts. We have done more Zongo development. We have done gold for oil. That of the economy, agriculture, industry, services. We have done more than you.
Well, the NDC's presidential candidate, John Dramani Mahama, is also making a strong case to sway the region to the NDC. Only this week, he's been to the region twice, laying out a detailed vision for revitalizing and expanding Ghana's creative arts industry. He says a future NDC government will construct a second national theater in the Ashanti region. He's been speaking to, a group of creative arts people in the Ashanti region. We'll watch this. When we come, we'll tell you about what happened when he met the clergy.
Last year, 30th
He said, God has used me to prophesy. Last year, on the 30th of July 2023, nothing can change it. By the grace of God, John Mahama is going to be president again. God told me, and I said it. No evil forces can change it.
National Film Theatre, since China for boy you see Rollins Abreso, everything there it's not been rehabilitated.
He said the National Theatre has not been rehabilitated since the Chinese helped us to build it during Rawlins's administration. A lot of things are in bad shape at the theatre. The curtains cannot be drawn. The stage is in bad shape, and so it's time for us to rehabilitate the building so it can help the creative industry. In our 2020 manifesto, we promised to build Ghana's second national theatre in Kumasi. That promise is still in our 2024 manifesto. So we'll fulfill that promise, and we're repeating that if we come into power, we'll build our second theatre in Kumasi. He said the National Theatre in Accra will also be renovated.
Well, away from that, the Bekwai Circuit Court charged 6 persons involved in the assault of Joy News journalist Erastus Asare Donko and his crew with 5 counts of assault, stealing, and conspiracy to commit crime, among others. Environmental journalist Erastus Asare Donko and his team were abducted and physically assaulted by heavily built men working for Edel Metallium Resources Limited. 5 other suspects are at large. Love FM editor Kofi Edudonfe was in court today and has come through this story.
The 6 accused persons who appeared in court include Felix Amankwa, Akwesi Frimpong, Frederick Afol, Joshua Ofori, Mumuni Musa, and Daniel Apia, all employees of Edel Metallium Resources Limited. They are between the ages of 23 and 52 years. They are accused of forcibly abducting Erastus Asare Donko, Majid Alidu, Edward Akun, and Nicholas Swanta, taking them to an undisclosed location, subjecting them to brutal beatings, and later abandoning them. The Joy News crew were investigating illegal mining activities at Manson Esumenya. Prosecution, led by ASP Lloyd Bedu, charged all accused persons on 5 counts of assault, conspiracy to commit crime, and stealing. All 6 pleaded not guilty to the charges. Their counsel pleaded the court to admit the accused persons to bail, arguing they have been of good behavior after a police inquiry bail. The prosecutor did not object to the plea. Presiding Judge Justice Isaac Apietu therefore granted the plea for bail, with 2 sureties of 100,000 Ghana cedis, and for all accused persons to present themselves to the Manson Edubia police every Monday before the next court hearing. The case was adjourned to Friday, December 13, 2024. For Joy News, Kofi Edudomfe reporting.
Now, still on illegal mining, convener for the Ghana Coalition Against Galam, Dr. Kenneth Ashigwe, has raised concerns over the silence of stakeholders, including organized labor, since the initial move by government to deal with the menace after labor called off the intended nationwide strike. He spoke on the Super Morning Show earlier today.
Listen, tell me which of the enhanced things have started that you have been able to see that some results, apart from when the military moved out and then they deployed and they got media people in there for one day. After that, what has happened? Nothing. So which one again? The court? Nothing. There are issues about LIS 2462. What they have all the two of them who sat in parliament, the NDC and the NPP who sat in parliament to get that law, that obnoxious law passed. They have decided that they are more interested in where they will sit than how we will deal with these issues. Well, another thing that we're also planning of doing is to mobilize all the presidential candidates and then also the parliamentary candidates to sign on to that. Nothing has happened. So it's important that we also, as a people, we really wake up and say that, if it was your son, who had a fourth-year student from KNUST, just had to go and defend his thesis, and goes to fall into a pit and dies. Are you now going to say we should wait till the next election? If it's your daughter that goes to give birth to a baby with 4 feet and 2 hands, and then without genitalia, dies, and the postmortem is carried out, and in the bone marrow, the level of toxicity in that, would you be happy about it? This is the question we'll be asking ourselves.
Well, he says the coalition will roll out a series of actions in the coming days to pressure the government to deal with the situation.
I've been talking to the GJ. The time has come for us to all mobilize together and decide that the police who are involved, the Ministry of Interior who are also responsible for the police, as well as the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, who also have anything to do that. We will tell them that if they won't deal with this particular issue, maybe we should get to the point where we do a blackout of all of them. So this particular issue is handled. How is it that a journalist who has really been at the forefront of fighting this particular crime that is being called genocide that is being committed against all of us, he and his crew are attacked, and we don't have anything happening to it? These criminals who did it are still walking free. How does that happen in any country that is serious about fighting this particular scourge?
Well, still on it, President Akufo-Addo has been speaking on the subject at the opening of the 29th Conference of Parties, COP29, in Baku of Azerbaijan, including what the government has been doing to address climate change. He said there must be a consolidated effort to stop destruction of the environment to secure Ghana's future.
We're determined to meet the Paris Agreement's goals across agriculture, transport, forestry, energy, and other sectors. We have made strides. The Green Ghana project has planted 50 million trees, and forest restoration efforts have covered 721,000 hectares since 2017 when I came to office. 13 mitigation actions have cut annual greenhouse gas emissions by 43% since 2021. Ghana's national electric vehicle policy, backed by tax incentives, promotes sustainable mobility, and our energy transition framework steers us towards a green future. Through Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, Ghana has mobilized $800 million United States dollars by trading carbon credits with nations like Switzerland and Sweden. However, we cannot reach our climate goals alone. We call on our global partners to honor their commitments, ensuring accessible concessional financing for sustainable development in Africa without unsustainable debt. As a father and a grandfather, I question what we will leave behind. What world will we leave behind? Our children's future hinges on our decisions. That COP29 here in Azerbaijan mark a pivotal shift from dialogue to decisive action. Let us act boldly, showing future generations that we fought for them.
Well, Emanuela Manchaya Kalari is climate change officer at the Youth Bridge Foundation, and she's joined us via Zoom for some reaction. Emmanuel, I'm grateful to you for joining us. Now, you've heard the president there. What do you make of the effort he has enumerated there, and what we've seen done to fight the destruction of the environment here in Ghana?
Hey, good evening. Am I audible?
Very much so.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for having me. Yes, COP29 is underway, and the president has given his speech of the status of Ghana on climate change. As he rightly said, Ghana is bearing the brunt of climate change impacts. And then as much as we are contributing to the nationally determined contributions. I don't think we have done much. He did mention about Article 6. Ghana has made 800 million cedis from Article 6. I don't know how that has gone into mitigating the impacts of climate change. I also did hear about the planting of trees. I would like to say that Ghana has more sinks, carbon sinks, than it has sources. So whatever Ghana does in the mitigation of climate change is a plus for us. However, he did highlight the importance of developed countries to follow up with their commitments with climate finance, because ultimately that is what we need to mitigate the impacts of climate change. Whether Ghana contributes to its NDCs or not, the impacts of climate change are underway. Farmers are struggling, people are losing their homes, floods are taking people's homes. So what is being done about the people who are bearing the brunt of this? And this, Ghana as a developing country has not contributed as much as the developed countries has contributed to climate change. And therefore, as he rightly said, the developed countries need to follow up with their commitments to supporting us as a developing country to mitigate the impacts of climate change.
Grateful to you, Manchaya Kalari, for joining. Away from that, NDC MPs have introduced 2 additional private members' bills to repeal both the COVID-19 levy and emissions levy. It will be recalled that last week, a group of MPs, including Madina MP Francis Xavier Sosu, Minority Leader Dr. Kesila Toforson, and Alhassan Souyini, introduced a similar bill to remove the controversial tax. All these bills are yet to be formally laid on the floor, with Parliament currently on indefinite suspension. These moves by the NDC MPs forms part of their strategy to reduce what they call the suffering imposed by the current government, with barely 3 weeks until the crucial December 2024 elections. We will speak to a sponsor shortly. First, though, here are details of these bills. Now, if you look at it, it says the COVID-19 Health Recovery Act 2021 to repeal the COVID-19 levy, the Income Tax Amendment Act 2023 to repeal the withholding tax rate on winnings from lottery. Again, the Emissions Levy Act 2023, Act 1112 to remove the emissions levy on carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. So these are what the proponent or those who are sending this bill intend to achieve. Francis Xavier Sosu joining us on the line. He is one of the MPs who are behind these bills. I'm grateful to you for joining. Now, the Constitution is clear that you cannot remove a tax by way of a private member's bill unless that bill is introduced by the government. Why then are you moving to do something the Constitution says you cannot do?
Well, thank you very much, and good evening to your cherished viewers. Let me say that what the MPs are seeking to do is not anything that is prohibited by the Constitution, because when you look at Article 108, under which I believe you are trying to make the argument, Article 108 makes it very clear that you can reduce taxes by way, you can actually remove taxes by way of reduction. And so what this bill seeks to do is, technically repealing these laws by way of reducing those taxes. One of those ways you can do that is even when the final bill is ready, you can have like the current 10% rate, for example, for betting tax reduced to like say 0.001%. And that would effectively mean taking the tax away, even though it may not be a complete repeal, because a complete repeal would then require an executive action, which I believe that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has already made some commitments to once the NDC government takes effect from 7 January 2025, some of those executive actions could be taken. What the MPs have sought to do is to demonstrate and to show commitment to these promises that have been made on political platforms and in our manifesto to show that once given the chance, this is going to happen. In fact, when Parliament is recalled, whatever we need to do through the drafting department to ensure that these bills are finalized and put before Parliament, we are going to ensure that this is done. In fact, we picked intel that one of the reasons why our colleagues were refusing actually to come to Parliament was because they knew that these policies were being introduced, and once we have a decision quorum in the House, some of these bills may move to the next level. And so I'm hopeful that we'll still be able to do it. But we want to reassure Ghanaians that what we are doing is right within the limits of the Constitution. We are never going to overrun the Constitution in respect of these bills.
So it means that you are actually looking for a reduction, not total removal of those taxes?
Absolutely. If you recall, sometime last year, I introduced a number of private bills in respect of removal of taxes on sanitary pads. Eventually, even though the bill was not fully laid eventually, the government took steps to remove some of those 15% taxes VAT that they had on sanitary pads. The effect is the same. What we have done is technically to move to the next level to say that we are moving beyond rhetoric to action, where we are taking steps to now introduce a memo to the House to reconsider these taxes. And I'm confident that once we reconvene, those reductions will be done. And obviously, if you are reducing a 10% tax to a 0.001%, technically you have removed the tax, except that at appropriate time, the legal instrument that is required to make it a zero, completely a repeal, would then be introduced.
Of course, people will say that the flag bearer of the governing NPP says he would do it after election. And people think that your move is a political strategy. Because you know that even Parliament is just some few days away from dissolution.
Well, it doesn't matter how anybody sees it. We were elected for a 4-year mandate. Until the 6th of January 2025, our mandate is not over, and we must continue to fight for the interests of the people. And so we are doing our work. If by virtue of what we do, we are successful at removing or redoing these reductions before 6, praise be to God. Otherwise, the next administration will always have an opportunity to take a look at it. As a political party, we are not going to say that if we do all those repeals today or we reduce all those taxes today, what would we do when we come to power? That is why we are taking the bull by the horn and making sure that what must be done is done now in the interest of the people, which also aligns with the NDC manifesto and the commitment of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama.
Okay. I'm grateful to you for joining us here, Francis Xavier Sosu there. We'll take a break here on Journey's Prime. We'll be back with more, please. Don't go away. Welcome back from the break. Let's do election headquarters now, which is brought to you by Potential Real Estate, your trusted partner in real estate. Petrosol Platinum Energy, energizing dreams. The Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountant, together as the Association of International Certified Professional Accountant, the German Ozone Medical Center, Alternative Therapy, Dental Wellness and Beauty, also by the Chopbox Technologies, a convenience service, and Youth Bridge Foundation, bridging the gap for positive youth development. And let's take you to somewhere in the Western North region and join the John Mahama campaign, because we understand that from the Ashanti region, that's where the flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama, is. And my colleague, Maxwell Agbagba, is embedded in that team and joins us now with more. Maxwell, what more can you tell us?
In the Sefi Akontombra constituency here in the Western North region, where the NDC presidential candidate John Mahama just arrived about 15 minutes ago. But we know that on Monday and then on Tuesday, he's been meeting some key interest groups in the Ashanti region, and I'm talking about the creative arts industry and then the clergy. He met the clergy on Monday, and then on the next day, that was Tuesday, he met members of the creative arts industry. These two groups are influential groups in the Ashanti region. The creative arts industry plays an instrumental role in the Ashanti region, and we all know the influence that they wield there in the Ashanti region. In that meeting with the clergy also, we saw very influential figures. The clergy from the Ashanti region also attended that event. Feedback we've been picking from some members of the party is that they're impressed, really impressed with the attendance, especially on Monday. In fact, the National Communications Officer for the NDC, Sami Jemfi, was the MC for the day, said they were overwhelmed by the participation of the members of the clergy at that particular event. On Tuesday also, they said they were impressed. Now, key things the NDC presidential candidate talked about on Monday in that meeting with the clergy is an assurance to the religious community, the religious leaders, that a future NDC government will not countenance LGBTQ in the country. In fact, he urged the Christian leaders and all Ghanaians to help so that it does not infiltrate the younger generation. He also talked about issues of governance. He also talked about what he would do to eliminate corruption. He mentioned the oral operation, Recover All Loot, and said he would need the support of the religious leaders to attain the aim of recovering all that he says has been stolen. Now, in that meeting with the creative arts industry, he promised members of the creative arts industry a new national theatre. He says a second national theatre will be sited in the Ashanti region, and he says if a future NDC government is elected, a future NDC government would ensure that it constructs a new national theatre in the Ashanti region, the capital of Kumasi.
Maxwell Agbaba joining us from Sefi Akontombra in the Western North region, where the flag bearer of the NDC is at this moment. Now, away from that, Spain ambassador to Ghana, Angel Losada Torre Quevedo, has called for an end to attacks on journalists, warning that such actions threaten press freedom. Speaking at the launch of a fact-checking training session in Accra, organized in partnership with the Ghana Journalists Association, the CASA Africa ambassador Losada emphasized the importance of press freedom for the open flow of information.
We try to foster a good relation between the embassy and the Ghanaian institutions, the press, the Ghanaian press and media, in a common work, in a common effort to make sure that freedom of speech and freedom in general is essential for everybody. So freedom of speech is essential, and attacks on freedom of speech are wrong. And they are dangerous for the freedom of the citizens. It's not just the speech, it's the citizens, because you cannot take good political decisions, good decisions in general, without a free press, a free information, a flow of information that it's plural and that it's free.
Now, what if your old worn-out clothes could find new life? As soundproofing materials, a laptop stand, or even a hanger? In today's episode of Climate Focus, we explore how a startup is turning the tide on textile waste. Instead of clogging landfills or polluting the ocean, millions of discarded second-hand garments from around the world are now fueling innovative solutions that transform waste into product with purpose. My colleague Michael Ashale has more in the following report.
Waves no longer bring seashells to Ghana's shores. They now dredge up piles of discarded clothes left to rot on the beaches. Each week, around 15 million pieces of second-hand clothing once worn in the global north flood markets like Kantamanto, much of it unsellable, worn out, torn, stained or too fragile.
Trash. It does trash. Nobody's buying this one. So something like this, we can't sell it. It's very bad. Nobody buys it.
Agbogbloshie Market, a place infamous for its pollution, is where much of the unsellable clothing ends up. Clothes that can't be resold are tossed into illegal dump sites, forming literal hills of waste. The All Foundation is confronting this mounting problem head-on, a factory to breathe new life into unwanted waste clothing.
Like we're in Ghana, nobody needs winter jackets over here, but a lot of those also come in. As long as somebody has no use for it and it can't find a good place to go to, that's waste.
Kini Ofuriwa Makati is the assistant manager in charge of material research and development at the All Foundation. The first step in this process is sorting the clothes by color and then compressing them back into bales.
When we buy them, we bring them to our warehouse facility and then we sort them by color.
These clothes, once considered waste, are now ready for the next phase. The bales are shredded into small pieces, cutting the fabric down to size. From there, they are passed through the granulator, which makes the shredded material even finer. Depending on the final use, the size of the particles can be regulated. What emerges from this meticulous process is not waste, but potential.
We're also working on products that we can make from the fiberboard. Behind me are speakers, both fully made speakers, which were the first speakers that we made, and then the speaker housing down here. We have hangers, there's room dividers, acoustic panels, because fiberboard has good acoustic properties, as well as many other things. And we're looking to see if we can commercialize some of these products soon.
The All Foundation's mission doesn't stop at textiles. They are also exploring ways to restore the polluted Agbogbloshie Lagoon. Remediation and Decomposition Project Lead Katia Mahamudu Bawumia is focused on finding environmentally friendly ways to break down not only textiles, but plastics as well.
Basically, we believe that the microbial population in Korle Lagoon, because of the decades and decades of textile waste, has evolved to be able to degrade it in a way in rates that we haven't really seen in other communities. So we're basically just trying to harness that to deal with the textile waste we're getting from markets like Kantamanto, etc.
While still in its early stages, this initiative is part of a broader vision to restore the lagoon's environment. The waste that once polluted landfills is now being transformed into sustainable products that serve a purpose. But with millions of garments continuing to flow into the country each week, the fight is far from over. For Joy News, Michael Ashali.
And on that love note, we wrap up today's bulletin. There's more on myjoyonline.com. Up next is Prime Business at 8.